Hello everyone, welcome back again. It's your girl AB World Entertainment, Pidgin and Procogis TV on YouTube and Osaratin Gist TV on Facebook. Today, we want to quickly deliberate on the matter on ground about the election with the presidential election. So, I would like you guys to listen to one popular senior advocate. Okay, guys. So in Falani, so come and hear what he said about the election where he dey draw the go. So about the presidential winner. Okay, who win the election? So he said that is anybody that must be the president of Nigeria must win a requirement of just like as this annex said, before you may become the president of Nigeria, you win 25% in the capital city, which is Abuja. So and he talked a lot about the whole thing that is going on now. You understand, guys? So I will not take much of your time. I will just want you to carry your chair, carry your palmy and granite, and sit and come and listen to Femi Falana. Okay, guys, so please help me to share this video and leave your positive comment for me in the comment section. Okay, so love you guys. See you in my next video. Bye, everyone.
With a prominent Nigerian senior lawyer, Mr. Femi Falana, senior advocate of Nigeria, who is live with us virtually. It's good to see you, Mr. Falana. Thank you so much indeed for your time tonight. What a time it is in our political history. Our elections are being debated, and issues coming out of this election are also being heavily debated. I know you are a reputable lawyer in the land, and I know that you know the rules guiding substantial cases before the court, and I know you might not want to delve into those matters, but without having to touch on the meat of the petitions before the Presidential Election Tribunal, there's been a lot of controversy. Can you please give some kind of explanation and some kind of explainer on what has divided many Nigerians on the issue of the Section 134 of the Constitution, in just simple time, without delving into the meat of what is before the court?
Well, I had expressed an opinion on Section 134 of the Constitution on the 23rd of January this year. That's about a month before the presidential election. On that occasion, I expressed a legal opinion. And that was why I was very hesitant to join the bandwagon when lawyers started giving political interpretation of that section. My position this year, in January this year, and I think it was my respected colleague Olisa Agbakova that expressed concern and drew the attention of the INEC to Section 134 of the Constitution, and that it might create some problem. And on that occasion, through your medium, I did state that there is no electoral college in Nigeria, and therefore the votes cast, or recorded in any part of are equal. Section 134 of the Constitution specifically requires a winner of a presidential election to meet certain requirements. The first one is to score the majority of lawful votes, and the second one is the territorial spread. 2/3 majority of the states and the Federal Capital Territory. And since the Federal Capital Territory has been interpreted to be the 37th state in Nigeria for the purpose of the Constitution, I didn't see any controversy at the material time, and that was when I expressed my opinion. But now that it has become a serious legal issue, the matter is now pending in court. I'm very, very reluctant to speak definitively on this section, because there are decisions of our court on the status of Abuja, 2 judgments of the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court. There is also the judgment of the Supreme Court on equality of votes recorded in every state in the country. So since these decisions are available to all lawyers in Nigeria, to all my colleagues, I would have expected the debate to be anchored on decided cases, particularly by the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court. Again, what I said, since the matter is pending in the Court of Appeal already, it has been raised in some of the petitions. To that extent, I'm not expected to express my opinion so that one does not disrespect the court. But as I did say, I'd expressed an opinion when the election had not held, a month to the presidential election. And I stand by my position, which is that Abuja has been interpreted to be the 37th state in it. I can't go beyond that for now, Shane.
I know you can. There is it's been a lot of controversies, and there's been a lot of division along party lines on the interpretation. Some will say, oh, it comes interpreted. Some say, no, it has been decided by our court. Of course, Section 134, for those who do not have their constitution very close to them, it states just concisely what the lawyer, Mr. Falana, just stated now. And because Mr. Falana doesn't want to go deeper into it, you might as well just go onto Channel's YouTube page, and that's channelstvweb.com, and you can also find out for yourself what Mr. Falana said earlier. We are not lawbreakers. We do not want to touch on what the courts are going to be deliberating on. Highest number of votes, and of course, spread to 25% into third of the state of the federation, plus the AFCT. We'll be hoping and looking forward to what the court will decide on this matter. Perhaps we'll lay that to rest if there's anything that happen. And so, Mr. Falana, I'm not sure a lot of people imagined that the 1979 scenario could play out. For some people have said, this is looking like, it may not be exactly like this. Did you envision that this election might be, for example, we had perhaps the lowest percentage of votes that have been won by anybody that has been declared as president-elect in this country in this election? Did you ever thought that this election was going to turn out like this?
Well, I've regards to our experience in the past, and once it was clear that there were more than 2 strong candidates, I had envisaged that we might have this kind of scenario. But there are people who are suspected that we might be having a second or rerun election for those who are the fear that the clear winner might not emerge. So there's nothing that has happened, to be honest with you, that can be said to be straight. Elections in Nigeria since 1999, we've had over-bloated figures. And since 1999, what to call voter apathy might not capture the problem. We may now begin to interrogate the figures that are recorded, the number of people registered to vote. A friend was telling me there were rats in his own area in one of the states. Up to 2019, the least votes from some riverine area would be in the neighborhood of at least 130,000. But this time around, it's barely 5,000. Because you have to be captured by the beavers machine before you can be said to have voted. So whereas about 93 people registered to vote, and were told that 87 million collected their PVC. In a place like Lagos, 6.2 million people collected their PVC. But at the end of the day, the presidential election attracted only 1.2 million. So those figures that were recorded in the past for majority of the states have been taken away by the beavers machine. And that is why the number has gone down. Yes, you might have recorded voter apathy in a number of states. But in terms of the presidential election, where it was reported by the media that there was a large turnout, at the end of the day, we're talking of barely 25 million voters. So it is high time, the media, began to examine these figures. And that's my position.
All right. So
I'm not in any way taken aback.
Yeah.
Because I have an idea of how some of these figures are generated. And at the end of the day, the number of voters that really show up does not usually add up.
All right, let's go.
Our elections have always ended in tribunals. And that was why I had once described what goes on in Nigeria as tribunalization of democracy. Increasing involvement of our court in elections it does not happen anywhere in the world. For instance, we had 1,200 pre-elections, 600 appeals in the Court of Appeal, and about 120 in the Supreme Court. Now, election petitions are being filed. 400 judges, 7 judges have been invited to participate in election petition, to hear election petition cases. And for the next 6 months, the cases in those courts, the cases in the courts manned by those judges will have to be adjourned. Very soon, appeals will arise from the election petition tribunal. Again, appeals in other matters are going to suffer, including matters that have to do with the liberty of citizens. So many Nigerians are complaining now. Why should you have courts that are saddled with the responsibility of hearing only election petition and appeals arising from them? So it requires perhaps a review of the suggestion that one had made before now. We have a pool of retired judges. Why don't we invite them to handle election petitions while the regular courts will settle down and ensure that their work is not disrupted.
All right, Mr. Falana, let me jump in quickly. I have a few issues that I'd like you to touch on, but if I like them to be tackled quickly. There is some worries, though, as we're approaching some of the hearings and the court, especially Presidential Election Tribunal. Do you have confidence, based on what has happened recently in our courts about and now the politicking that we've seen in the land and the intensity and the tension that we have seen in the land? What is your biggest fear as far as the integrity of the judiciary is concerned today in respect of these petitions?
So I'm not going to join some of my colleagues who are rubbishing the courts. I'm not going. I go to the court on a daily basis. If I have a problem with any court or any judge for that matter, what I'm required to do is to write a petition and submit to the NJC, National Judicial Council. But I cannot, for goodness sake, embark on what I call a fallacy of generalization. Oh, Nigerian courts are bad. Nigerian judges will not dispense justice. For me, once you prepare your case, and for me, I don't think there should be any cost.
So, I mean,
elections have been annulled in Nigeria by our courts. Our courts have ordered rerun elections, even in the case of presidential election. One of them, I think, the case of Buhari and Yaradua and Atiku and Yaradua, the president-elect escaped narrowly. It was a decision of 4 to 3 justices of the Supreme Court. But that election of 2007, the winner of the election, the late President Umaru Yar'Adua, did say publicly that the election was highly flawed. In some of the states, not less than 5, elections were annulled, and rerun elections were ordered. And as far as I'm concerned, if election petitions are well prepared, and it's much easier now than before, because in the case of Buhari and Obasanjo, the late Justice Pat Acholonu did say that to win a presidential election, that is no longer the case. With electronic, technology that has been introduced into our electoral system, it is no longer so onerous to prove election petitions. In this case, if you're able to get your Beavers report, because what is not usually recorded, overvoting, writing of figures, manipulation of results, it is now very easy to deal with those matters. In the case of, I think, Anambra State, the case between Obi and Ngige, the current Minister of Labour and Employment, they were caught for almost 3 years. You had a man who didn't win election, who was in power for 3 years. So at the time the case was decided, and the argument arose as to whether somebody who didn't win election will be in office for 3 years, while the winner will just go in there for 12 months. And I think on that occasion, Mr. Peter Obi did say, I just want to go and complete the tenure. And I had to say, what tenure? He had no tenure. His tenure is unknown to law. So go to court and ask for an interpretation. And of course, the Supreme Court did say that, the day you are inaugurated is when your term of office begins to run. So We have gone through all this before, and nothing strange.
All right. So, I mean, it then brings me to section 36, Mr. Falana, and what the NBA president had hinted. And he has said, for issue of fairness, and section 36 of the Constitution talks about the right to fair hearing, and that established tribunal by law and constituted in such a manner has to secure its independence and impartiality. Would you subscribe that the presidential election tribunal proceedings should be televised?
I've always campaigned for that, and that is the trend now in Africa. In Ghana, the proceedings are televised. In Kenya, the proceedings are televised because judges, you have nothing to hide. You invite the media, invite members of the public. When there is order in the court, everybody should be part of it because we're all part of the election. And so the decision of the courts on the election should not be shrouded in secrecy. For that reason, I support the call by the president of the Nigerian Bar Association, Mr. Yakubu Eka, SAN, that the proceedings should be televised. It's in the interest of our judges. It's in the interest of the public. And again, it enhances the credibility of the judiciary.
All right.
And I'm very sure that the suggestion will be seriously considered.
Yeah. So we'll see how things pan. My final question tonight is in the area of violence, and I just have about 60 seconds to go. It's in the area of violence. And Serap today was coming out to saying that INEC should investigate those governors who are said to have allegedly perpetrated violence in the election. So the question would be, does INEC have the powers? In fact, if they investigate, what becomes of those reports that will be submitted, considering the immunity that some of the governors enjoy? What becomes of that kind of suits that Serap has threatened upon INEC?
Well, Serap's position is based on the number of arrests that have been made by the police, the EFCC, SSS, ICPC, and the rest of them, and even the military. Some were caught distributing money, inducing voters. Some engaged themselves in killing, electoral violence. And I think one of the NGOs had come up with a figure of about 109 people were killed. That was before the governorship election. During the governorship election, more have been added. The governors who are in power are going to lose their immunity in the next couple of months. Now, and they can be pursued thereafter. And that is what is going on in the United States of America, where President Trump is being investigated for interfering with the election in Georgia. So the question of immunity does not arise. INEC is empowered by Section 145 of the Electoral Act 2022 to prosecute electoral offenders. And since INEC says it does not have the power, the facilities to do that, the Nigerian Bar Association has offered to help. We did it in 2011 successfully. The NBA has now invited, has requested INEC to send all the files that have to do with electoral offenses. The Inspector General of Police has already ordered all commissioners of police to send the case file to the INEC, and I get forward transmission to the Nigerian Bar Association. Unless we deal with impunity, electoral violence, electoral malfeasance will never stop in our country. And we must make a point this time around.
All right.
That all those who engage in inducement of voters, alteration of results, ethnic profiling, and the rest of them will have to be dealt with there. The question of going to the ICC or begging the West to impose fiscal sanctions, for me, almost suggests that we're incapable to deal with electoral offenses in our country. with the commitment of the Nigerian Bar Association and the INEC, let us begin the process of bringing people to book for a heinous offense.
All right.
That's my position.
NFC, Mr. Femi Falana, rights activist and senior advocate of Nigeria. Thank you indeed for your thoughts tonight. We really appreciate it.